So, what would make a successful business executive and entrepreneur change directions 180 degrees and do something completely different? You'll see coming up. Hi, welcome back to the basement. Today on Leading from the Basement, we have a special guest. I've known Dave Barnes for about 18 years now, and he has a very interesting story to tell us. He's been a successful sales guy, he's managed, he's been a C-level executive, he's owned his own business, and then all of a sudden, he and his wife Cindy decided to do something completely different. I think you'll really like his story, so stick around to the end so you hear all of it. I have some notes here about Dave Barnes that I wrote down.
Uh-oh.
Dave Barnes he's a dad. He's a grandpa. He's got 4 kids, right? 3 boys, 1 daughter. How many grandkids do you have?
I have 4 grandkids, 2 boys, 2 girls.
Awesome. And you, I think, are like me. You got your bachelor's degree as a dad, as a family guy, right? Didn't it take you a while to get your bachelor's degree? Or did you get it?
I started college right when Cindy and I got married. And I went a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And then I stopped at that point. But then I ended up going back after we had all 4 kids.
Yep.
I went back and got my bachelor's degree, waited another year, and then I ended up getting my master's degree as well. So.
Okay. Yeah. And I have a similar story. I mean, I think I was 32 when I got my bachelor's. I was doing the math, and this is scary. You and I met in 2002, and you worked for University of Phoenix, and I worked for Gonzaga, and we met in Boise. Do you remember that?
Yes. So that is where I was working at Dex prior to that, Quest Dex.
Okay.
And I took that job because they had a tuition benefit program that would pay for my tuition.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it, started going to the University of Phoenix. So once I got on into the classes with the University of Phoenix, and then I went and got a job at University of Phoenix. So that's how I actually got into University of Phoenix, is I started taking classes first, and then I went and got a job there.
And I think we ran into each other a couple times at various education fairs and that sort of thing. And I wound up working for University of Phoenix and working for you for a while. Dave actually transferred up to Spokane. Dave was my boss. I've repressed all that, so I won't bring any of that. No, Dave was my boss for a while, and we both worked for University of Phoenix. But then tell us, Dave, from there, what you did, because it gets interesting there. You had a few different interesting roles there.
So I was a director of enrollment for University of Phoenix in Eastern Washington. And then I was approached by the owner of a company called Datadot Technology. And there was an opportunity there for me to take over and become the president of the U.S. operations. So I took a position with Datadot Technology. Basically, that company, they worked on asset identification. My responsibility was all of North and South America. So the company was headquartered out of Sydney, Australia. I took care of all the manufacturing facilities. The manufacturing facility here in the U.S., I dealt with all the distributor relationships in North and South America. So I was on the road a lot.
Then where did Kimmel come in? Did you go from Datadots to Kimmel?
I did. I was with Datadot, and then I left there and I went over to Kimmel Athletic. And that, again, another opportunity for me to step in as the president of a larger company. Kimmel was probably about 6 times larger than Datadot was. Revenue-wise. So I took a position. The president of Kimmel Athletic was getting ready to retire. And so I was contacted by a headhunter for that position. and interviewed for that. It looked like to be a good fit. We had even discussed possibly some ownership arrangements if things worked out, etc. So I took over and was the president of Kimmel Athletic in Eastern Washington, in Spokane.
Okay. And then here's where I have the other name down, the other point I have for Dave Barnes, which is entrepreneur Dave Barnes. So is that when you started your company, the painting company, after Kimmel, right?
Yes, after Kimmel Athletic, right. When I left Kimmel, there was, my oldest was getting married. We repainted our house. We did a lot of work to our home and got it ready to have just a small reception in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And just through word of mouth of people coming to that reception, a lot of people were like, hey, your house looks awesome. Why don't you come paint my house? Now, when I was going to college, when I first married, I painted for several years. My brother's a paint contractor in Boise, Idaho. So I did have painting experience. So I bought some equipment and painted a few houses. And I was like, and it gave me an opportunity to work with my son. And we both enjoyed that. So there was an opportunity there for me to see what we could do and see if we could grow a business and get him closer to the family. He had moved for a while. He was in Maine, for a while he was in Boise, and then he moved back up to Spokane. So it got him closer, got the grandkids closer to us again. So he and I worked together. We built a company from the ground up, Emery Pro Painting, and we started doing just repaints. And then we landed some builders, and we were growing. We were actually doing very well. At one point, we had upwards of 10 employees working. We actually did very well for a long time.
I was just going to say, you guys did that for a while. So how many years did you guys do that?
We did that for about 4 years. And then there was another change in the wind that hit.
Okay, so you worked with Dex, you were in sales, you've done sales, you worked UOP, executive experience with Datadot and with Kimmel. And I guess the question I want to ask is, there's a great book, I can't remember the guy's name who wrote it, but it's called The Crucible, right? And it basically, there's several books called The Crucible, but the one I'm talking about in particular is a business book. And it basically talks about typically in the life of a leader, there is a crucible that they go through. Maybe it was a terrible company they worked for. Maybe it was a terrible experience that happened, or something dramatic that they've gone through. And then as they came out on the other side, they point to that and say, you know what, that's where I really learned a lot about X. So up till this point, is there a specific period or challenge or anything that you went through that kind of set Dave Barnes' sights, you know, that maybe it was helping you discover, hey, here's what I'm really good at. Here's what I want to do. Here's where I can make a difference. I mean, over the course of that 25-year period, what was it? What did you learn? Was there a specific thing that you went through that kind of focused you on something?
I would say I had some very strong goals growing up as a kid. I was the youngest of 8. All my siblings and my father and everybody were blue-collar workers, and I had no desire to go that path. I really didn't. It just, to me, it did not fit. So I had some good goals. I had goals, financial goals that I was going to hit growing up as a kid. We did not have a lot of resources. My dad was law enforcement, and my mom worked in a hospital as an instrument tech, and they didn't earn a ton of money. So that was a big goal for me. So how I progressed in those things was all to achieve certain goals. And it was very stair-stepped to be able to get into those executive positions, to be able to achieve certain levels of income. Once I got there, I figured out, okay, the income's nice, but you're not any happier. You're not any happier at that level of income income than you were somewhere else, because there's always that next level. There's always that carrot in front of your nose. So for me, it was just learning along that process to be happy where I'm at. And when I was with you at University of Phoenix, I only had, what did we have? I had 4 direct reports when we first started there.
Right.
And when I left, there was, I think, 16. We grew that to, sizable amount. At Kimmel Athletic, I had, I believe the number was 138 reports. So I always was focused more on the stair step and increasing. But at the same time, I was learning so much about my leadership style, how I was effective with other people. And I was also learning that I really was not enjoying running other people's companies, because my values, to align my values and my work ethic and my style of management with someone else did not always equate. I'd be in a company and my style of management would conflict, or my values would conflict, or I'd be asked to do certain things that I was not comfortable with. And when you're in an executive role, sometimes you either get on board or they will just replace you and find somebody else that will.
Right.
And so I really found that I really did not enjoy that. What I thought I was going to love and doing is running other people's businesses, because I did not find we were on the same page. So I think that's what kind of led to the opportunity, plus the other things that were going on in my personal life and with my kids, the opportunity to join in with my son and to build something of our own and not have that someone else telling us how to do it. I actually enjoyed that.
Great.
I did not want to go into the trades because, like I told you, all my family was in the trades, and that was just something I did not want to do, but I actually enjoyed it. My style of management, and we can talk about this if you want, is servant leadership. I love to work side by side with my employees. I don't care what job you have. I love that part of the business. And I did love that in the trades, is building the business. But there was a time when I had several different crews working that I'm doing more of the managing, but I loved going out to the job site, picking up a brush, picking up garbage. Help, I didn't care. I love to work side by side with the guys as well. So I'm not sure if that completely answers all your questions, but definitely there were things along the road that influenced me and how I continued to grow in that way.
That's awesome. And so there's Business Dave, right? So you work for a number of companies in, various leadership positions, successful executive level, C-level positions. Start your painting company, which I think is awesome. Owning your own company, working with your son. I think that was great. You guys painted my mother-in-law's house and she loved it. It was great. It was awesome. But then, Dave, and here's the really, it's all interesting, but this is what's fascinating to me. Tell us what you've been doing for the last few years and give us details on exactly the institution you work for and what you guys are doing now. That's what I really want to hear about.
Excellent. So we're painting, and my youngest left the house. So we're empty nesters. And it really caused my wife and I to just have a conversation of we have a big home. We don't need this home. Are we going to sell? Are we going to downsize? Are we going to buy some land? We were looking at maybe buying some land and really putting a lot of effort into this painting company, building a shop, maybe going in a couple different directions. So we kept doing all these things and looking into them, and we did not feel good about it. We did not feel good at all. And one day I got a call from a great friend of ours from Boise. He was in Spokane, and he said, "Hey, I'd love to take your wife and you to lunch." So we went to lunch, and we were talking, and he was asking us, and we were giving him the update of what's going on. And he's like, "You guys sound like you're ready for an adventure." And I'm like, "What?" So he's like, "Well, let me tell you about what my brother's doing." And he starts to tell us about this, and I'm like, wow. So I am now a house parent at Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So let me tell you, he is telling us about his brother was a house parent at Milton Hershey School. I've never heard of Milton Hershey School, never heard anything about it. I didn't even really know Hershey, Pennsylvania existed. I think I may have heard about it once, but
you'd had a
never
Hershey
heard of
bar.
it.
You'd had a Hershey bar, right? Yeah.
Oh, I've had many Hershey products. And if you actually look on the back of the product, every time you buy a Hershey bar, it pays my salary. So thank you for eating Hershey's. We appreciate it. So no, what it is though, is Milton Hershey was an amazing man. That he and his wife were unable to have kids. And so he actually set aside his total fortune to raising needy kids. Now, at the time, they were all orphans, and he started a school for orphans. But now they're not just orphans. This school now has grown to the point where it's sustained by an endowment. It's all money from the stock that he left for the school. So 100% of his wealth created this school. And now we have over 2,000 students that come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Some of them are rural, some of them are urban, some of them come from homes where they just, maybe there was an economic issue like we just have gone through with COVID or something like that, and created a financial need and the parents are struggling taking care of their kids. So it's a boarding school where the kids come and live here and are provided all these opportunities. It's the dynamic here is very interesting. We are house parents. We have high school boys. So we have 12 boys that live in a home with us, and we are basically paid to be parents. We get them up in the morning, we run, they do chores, they get breakfast, they head off to school, and then we get to take time off. And while they're at school, we're off work. But as soon as school ends, we're back on duty, and we're their parents and mentors. And, we're here to just help give these guys, hopefully, some things that they are going to miss out on.
Right.
And hopefully provide some direction and some, help build some of that foundation that when they leave this school, when they graduate as seniors in high school, that they can be successful, that they can be, productive members of our society and change generations.
Yeah.
All of us have had challenges in our past and we can't control that. But what we can control is moving forward. And if they've been dealt a hand where both their parents are in prison, they're being raised by their grandparents, they can change that. And they can stop that with this generation. And hopefully moving forward, we can teach them things that this is what it's gonna take for you to be successful. So we're not their parents, but we're role models. We live with them every day. We get to instill some values in them a little bit and teach them different things about business. I can't tell you how many times I get to sit down with guys and they say, I want to start my own business. And we have business discussions. I love it. So I'm raising kids.
That's awesome.
Total change from what we've done in the past.
And so I'm assuming, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're probably not making the money that you've made in the past. I'm assuming that it's a very fulfilling, enriching role that you have. That's my assumption.
It is. Through our church, I think we calculated close to 19 years of volunteer with youth, with young men. And specifically, I think 16 of those years were with 14 to 16-year-olds. So guess what I have a house full of? 14 to 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's an age group that I'm very comfortable with. They're great guys. I want to dispel anything. The kids that we have here are not juvenile delinquents.
Right.
They are just kids that are in a tough situation. So if they've got a storied background of crime or things like that, those are not the kids that we're raising here. They're kids that through no fault of their own, their parents are struggling. They're being raised by a family member. Most of them, I would say, of the kids in our home right now, close to 90% of them do not have a father in the home, and more than half do not even know their biological father. They're being raised by a single mom, or they're living with a sibling, or it's so varied. So all that experience working with those youth, I loved it. It was difficult for me when my youngest left, because I loved the teenage years. I loved having teenagers in my home. I loved going to all their activities, games, concerts, whatever it was. I loved that. And when my youngest left, it was a void. And when this popped up, I never dreamed that we would do anything like this. So to go backwards, let me tell you. So we had this, I learned about this on a Wednesday. My friend takes us to dinner on a Wednesday. By Saturday, I'd already done all the research and looked into this and said, this is cool. This is really cool. And I'm the risk taker. My wife is not the risk taker. She is steady Eddie. She likes the security. But she came in on Saturday and said, I've been thinking about this. I think we should look into this. And I said, well, my application's already complete. Picture's done. Have them in by Monday. And she said, whoa, no. I said, let's look into it. And I said, I've already done that. So put your application in. You have to do it together because the position, you have to be married.
Right. And you're both employed. You're parents. So you're both employed. Okay, gotcha.
Correct. Gotcha. We have to be married. That is a part of the job.
The partnership. Gotcha. Okay.
It is, yes. So we are both individually employed. But so we put in our application. I said, look, let's put it in. And if at any time we don't feel good about this, then we'll pull out.
Right.
And it went like this. Our applications went in Monday. Wednesday, we had an interview on the phone. The following week, we had another interview on the phone. And 2 weeks later, we were on a plane to Hershey, Pennsylvania to check out the job. That's how quick it moved. And it was like, oh, goodness. But at no time during that process did we ever feel, this isn't for us. We knew, and we were kind of sunk. And even my wife's looking at me, this is scary because I feel really good about this. So it ended up resulting in us selling our home before we even had an offer and selling everything in the business. And that's scary because we are all in. We got nothing to go back to. So if we got here and didn't like it and found, oh no, this is tough, which by the way, it's tough. It's tough raising 12 kids that aren't your own. But if we found that it was just too tough for us and we weren't capable of doing this or we didn't like it or whatever, we've got nothing to go back to because we sold everything.
How long has it been? 3 years, Dave?
2 years.
2 years.
We're just hitting July. We're in July now, so we're right at our 2-year mark. Yes.
And you guys still feel like it was the right thing?
Yeah, we do. We do. Now there are days where we look at each other and go, what did we do? But as even a parent with your own kids, you have those days.
Totally.
You have those days where your kids are just struggling and everything's just going wrong, and you look at each other and you want to go, really? And when we have those days, we just finished up 5 days off. We took some extra days off right now. And we just went on duty again today. I was so excited to jump in the van and go pick up the guys from their summer program. It was so exciting to see these guys and to get talking with them again and to see what's new in their life. And for whatever reason, I love it. I enjoy hanging around these kids. They're good kids.
Well, that's a lot of the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because I think that's an interesting story, because we don't often see someone who's a business person. It's kind of like their business all the way out. It's one thing to another. And this was a pretty drastic change. And, backstory, Dave and I played in a rock band together. Dave's a mean bass player and singer. We were all saddened when Dave made the announcement that that he was leaving the band, but it sounded like a really cool opportunity, and it sounds like it's still a very cool thing that you and Cindy are doing. And I'm sure you wouldn't say this because of you're a modest guy, but I'm sure you're making a tremendous impact in the lives of these young men. And to your point, many of them have not had that father figure, strong male role model in their lives. So I'm sure that they're really benefiting from that. So thank you for that good work that you're doing. And I'm really impressed because actually I've looked into the Milton Hershey. Is it called the Milton Hershey School? Is that what it's called? Milton Hershey
Yes.
School? Okay.
Milton Hershey School.
Yeah, and it's like a secret. I mean, I don't think anyone knows about it, but it's been there for a long time and has helped thousands of young men and women. And just that's you talked about servant leadership. I think Milton Hershey's an example of servant leadership. I mean, look at what he did.
Absolutely. The more I've learned about him, he was not afraid to get his hands dirty and to get in and work hard. Just so you know, the school's over 100 years old. It started in 1910. And it's amazing what he's left for these kids. Just so you know, we have over 200 homes. Each of these homes house up to 12 kids.
Wow.
So there's over 200 homes and house parents that live with these kids. We have kids from the age of 4 years old on up to seniors in high school. They can come here, all their food's taken care of, all their bedding and we have a clothing center that when they enroll, we take them there and they are fitted. They're given over $750 worth of clothing. They have personal clothing, they have school clothing, they have cold weather, warm weather, they have shoes, they have church clothing because we do a chapel. So all of that is provided. All their meals are provided. Their health care, their dental, everything is provided. Zero cost to those students. So unlike most boarding schools, if you get in, there's a fee for you to be able to stay there.
Right.
This is 100% funded by Milton Hershey and the funds that he's left. Our school facilities are state of the art. Every high school kid gets his own computer. They can graduate with they must have at least 2 certificate programs that they complete by the time they graduate. And if they keep their grades and they do well throughout high school, they can earn upwards of $100,000 college scholarship to help them in college. All of this free for these kids. So if you look at the way that Milton Hershey has left for these kids, and then how Cindy and I, as house parents, can hopefully affect generations by helping these kids. For them to be able to see what I'm going to use this very loosely, normal parent relationship can look like to people that love each. And we on purpose have our discussions in front of the kids on purpose so that they can see we don't agree and how we work through the process.
Wow.
That it doesn't have to come to violence. It doesn't have to come to name calling. And that there are times where we just say, we need to talk about this later. Yeah. And it's okay to say that in front of these kids so that they can see sometimes we have to just say, I need my time. And that's okay. So hopefully we're helping teach them some life skills as well.
That's great. No, that's awesome. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, Dave. And again, it's a testament to Milton Hershey that, again, I had never heard of until you told me about it. And a testament to you all. I mean, literally leaving your life behind, your house and everything, moving to this new adventure in Pennsylvania, Hershey, Pennsylvania. I appreciate your time, Dave. And
not a problem. Anytime.
We'll have you back to talk about playing bass or something at some point.
I will tell you, the two of the hardest things that I did have to leave, other than my dog, it was hard to leave my dog, was I had to leave the band, and I had to give up officiating basketball. That was very hard.
We didn't even get to that. We'll have to have a part 2 to talk about Dave, the basketball referee. So, okay.
That was very hard giving up.
So a big thank you to Dave Barnes for joining me in the basement today. Sorry about some technical glitches via Zoom there, but I thought his was a very interesting story to hear. And he's just a person that I have a lot of respect for and wanted to make sure we had a chance to meet him. Thanks so much for watching. Please take a minute and click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And we'll see you on the next episode of Leading from the Basement. Bye-bye.